Hello and welcome to Political Smackdown. This show is going to be about politics in North Carolina and the nation, and we have a great crew of folks here as the ship sets sail on the seas of the political season. And our crew members consist of Dean Westmoreland, Michael Philbeck, Andy Dedman, and I'm your host for this week, Dennis Davis. And we'll be rotating the host among ourselves, so don't expect to put all the blame on me this time. We'd like to welcome you to our initial show here, and we hope to cover national politics, state politics, and local politics, and we'll be starting off with some national political issues. Probably right now the biggest concern that most people have is what's been going on in the primaries. Dean, I'd like to start with you. Were you surprised by the results of the Iowa caucuses or the New Hampshire primary?
Not really. I wasn't surprised about the Iowa caucus at all, because John Edwards had done what he thought he should and what you have to do in a caucus situation, and that's meet with little groups of people. Kerry had a lot of money and had been there for a while, and so consequently I expected them to do well. I expected Dean to do better than he did, but after his little speech, I don't know how he's going to maybe survive this whole process. John didn't do as well in New Hampshire as I had hoped that he would. However, I thought that was pretty good since Dean and Kerry both lived there in New England, and Wesley Clark had been up there all along, so it was basically a statistical tie for third, and so that's basically the situation as it lies now, with all of them running around everywhere in South Carolina.
Mike, what about you? Any surprises in New Hampshire or?
Well, given the fact the media had pretty much crowned Dean the winner of the Democratic nomination in December, I think it's at least interesting and maybe a little bit surprising that he has fallen as fast as he has. I frankly think he's finished. He may not know it yet, but I think he's finished. Other than that, I don't think there are any surprises to me. I'm not a great big student of Democratic politics.
And speaking of great students, Andy, any surprises in Iowa or New Hampshire for you?
Well, I think what we learned in Iowa was that the Democratic Party is coming to its senses, and it's starting to see that Howard Dean could not be our standard bearer and beat George Bush in November. I think that we're becoming wiser. We're learning that we have to look at a more moderate type of a candidate. Kerry is very well known. He has a lot of stature because of his 20-plus years in the U.S. Senate. People feel a certain comfort with him, even though he may have a little bit more of a leftward tilt maybe. They feel comfortable with him. But they also like John Edwards. They liked his positive message of, you know, I'm not coming here to attack everybody and slash their tires and bust out their windshield. I want to give you a positive message about what I want to do. And that's what he did, and that's why he really overcome a lot of tough times in Iowa and moved ahead. In New Hampshire, he had to compete against General Clark, who had just camped out and lived there for so long. And they mirror themselves in a lot of their own responsibility, people who really feel comfortable with both of them. But I think that South Carolina is going to be the make or break of this, and I think Edwards has put his eggs in one basket, and I think he understands that, and you're going to see him work real hard up to Tuesday.
Well, fellas, remember we are talking about New Hampshire and Iowa. Are these accurate indicators of what you see in the rest of the nation, Dean?
Not really. I don't think it'll be exactly what you see, but with the press working the way it does, it gives everybody such a whoever wins and comes in second and third, and sometimes it's hard to figure out the guy that comes in third wins, and all that. So I don't know whether it will be the case, but you'll see them start dropping out maybe after South Carolina. I do want to say this. I understand that there was twice as many people went to the caucuses as did 4 years ago, and twice as many people voted in New Hampshire as did 4 years ago. And if I were George Bush, that would make me a little bit nervous. And if you think him having the State of the Union message the night after and going to New Hampshire a couple of days ago, right after those primaries was an accident, you'll have to think again, because that was by design, And he does, in my opinion, show a bit of worry from that.
Mike, New Hampshire, Iowa, mirror image of America?
Well, neither one of them have the African-American population nor the Hispanic population that has come to be the norm in American politics, especially in Democratic Party politics as relates to African-Americans. So South Carolina especially, where you have nearly 50% of the potential voters in the primary African-American, will be a different story. And the real question is there, I think, will be, will they support Edwards, Sharpton, or one of the other candidates? And I think that unless Edwards does, well, I think unless Edwards wins South Carolina, he's probably finished as a presidential candidate. Might be wrong, I've been wrong before, but I think he needs to win South Carolina.
Andy, what's your view?
Well, Iowa and New Hampshire are two completely different states than any others that we have, because it is pure retail politics. It's door to door. Most people, they actually see a candidate 3 to 4 times and see all of them that many times before they can make a decision. Now you've gone into the new phase of this campaign. It's going to be multiple states on the same day. You're going to the airport rallies, you're going to broadcast TV, you're going to the direct mail, and that's where it's going to change on this. I think that, as Mike said, I agree with, I think you're going to start seeing a winnowing process now, because this is the real deal. We're in the big time now, when you've got about 7 different caucuses and primaries going on this coming Tuesday. You're fighting a nation-wide campaign now, and resources are going to be very limited for that. I think Edwards will do well, though. I think that he will continue to do well. I think you'll see him go on in at least a few more weeks. I think you'll see him win South Carolina, and but then I think you're going to see some others start dropping. Probably Lieberman will probably be the next one to probably leave.
All right, so the scrimmage games are over and we're getting down to the preseason. South Carolina, Missouri, Oklahoma, Arizona. What do you see shaping up in the Democratic primaries next Tuesday, Dean?
Well, I think we're going to be able to see, we're going to watch that turnout again, and we'll watch who comes in first and second again. I understand Kerry is leading in Missouri. John Edwards is a strong second, which surprised me a little bit right off the bat. John Edwards has been doing well in Oklahoma all along. So again, I say, don't count John Edwards out. And I did want to say this about New Hampshire. You can tell the difference between any other state, because if you lived in New Hampshire, you're liable to have a presidential candidate shoveling your sidewalk.
Mike, what's your take on next Tuesday?
Well, next Tuesday will probably tell whether or not Kerry is going to be the nominee, or whether we still have a competitive situation into the first Tuesday in March. And I don't claim to have a crystal ball to know, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. But if Kerry does well in 5 or 6 of those 7 states, winning 3 or 4 of them, he's going to be hard to overcome.
Andy, how about South Carolina?
As I said earlier, it's do or die for Edwards, I think, in South Carolina. He's drawn a line in the sand. I think at all the polls I've seen, he is still in double-digit lead there, so I think that he will probably win that. Looks like everybody loves a winner, so Kerry has picked up some steam. Dean has dropped. The broadcast TV commercials have really gotten hot and heavy. Dean has dropped his. My understanding is he's not even going to be really working hard in South Carolina, because he sees it's kind of a lost cause for him now. But Kerry is coming on stronger, and I think a lot of that has to do with so many veterans in South Carolina that really like to have one of their own in. But I think, as I said earlier, you're going to see a winnowing process after Tuesday, and you'll probably see some of them start to drop in.
Well, I think you're right, and I think if Kerry wins South Carolina and Edwards loses, you guys can start printing the bumper stickers. The question is who will be on it. And another one bites the dust. Who's not going to be a factor after Tuesday, Dean?
I think probably Lieberman will be out. Kucinich will be out. And I don't know whether Sharpton will be out or not. He might be out.
But will he know it?
Well, will he do it? He may run right on up to the convention. And some of these other fellows may run up to the convention. If you can get into that situation where you have a low-budget campaign and just travel yourself and go to the airports and show up here and there, you can hang on in there till convention time, and many of these fellows just want to have their say at the convention, and that's it.
Mike, what about it?
Well, after Tuesday, we will either have Kerry and start thinking about who's going to run with him, or we will still have a race. And if we still have a race, conceivably Dean could do well enough to stay in a while longer, but I think Dean Westmoreland is right that probably Lieberman is finished. Lieberman is, after all, my Democratic friends, just too darn rational and reasonable to win in the Democratic primaries. And I think it's interesting that Andy said earlier that they wanted somebody more moderate than Dean. I'm not sure Kerry's voting record's any more moderate than Dean's governing of Vermont is, and I'm sure we'll have that debate all fall if he winds up being the nominee. But I think if Edwards does well, he's still in. Kerry obviously still in. I'm not sure who the third one will be. I don't see Wesley Clark taking much hold.
Andy, who's in, who's out?
Well, I would probably say that you'd see Kucinich and Sharpton. They're living off the land now, and they could go all the way to Boston this summer if they wanted to. And I think Sharpton has alluded to that, and Kucinich did say last night that he's planning on going to the convention. So I think you'll see them hang in. I like Joe Lieberman. I respect the man. He would be a good one, but it's like some guys have said in the past, he's just too nice a guy to be in politics. So I think that you'll see Senator Lieberman probably drop out. Dean, I don't know when he's going to start reading the handwriting on the wall. I think he's still reading the Time and Newsweek magazine from the other week when he was on the cover, and he thinks he's still a viable candidate, but I think he's dropping like a rock. So I think he thinks if he can get to a little bit more left-leaning states, maybe New York State, California, some of these others, he might do better, but I don't believe he'll make it.
Well, we're going to start talking pretty soon about vice presidential candidates, and if Edwards loses in South Carolina, does he move up the list to become a vice presidential candidate, or does Gephardt move in as a possible vice presidential candidate because he could deliver Missouri and some of those industrial states with the pro-union activity? Dean, how about a vice president?
Well, we first of all, we got to settle our president thing, and then he'll pick the vice president. But I do think, well, Edwards says he's not interested in that, but I'm a politician, and I've never seen one that wasn't interested in that when push comes to shove. When they walk in there and say, would you like to be vice president of the United States? Yes, sir. They would like to be. And I think there are several candidates for vice president with a Kerry ticket. But I haven't decided whether I think Kerry's going to make it to the brass gold ring yet or not. We've got a lot of voting to do and a lot of stuff to see and a lot of money to spend, and it'll begin sorting itself out, as you said, after. I think even after the South Carolina and the February 3rd primaries are out of the way, I think there's still some winnowing to do.
All right, Mike?
Well, Gephardt would be a strong candidate because he could almost certainly deliver Missouri, and if you think the red and blue states are going to be pretty nearly what they were 4 years ago, then that means Bush has to win some relatively large state that he didn't win before. So I think Gephardt's, and I haven't heard Gephardt say he wasn't interested in being VP, so I think Edwards has a pretty tough thing to overcome to be VP. Dean, I understand what you're saying, but Edwards has just flat said no, he wouldn't do it on more than one occasion that I've heard him say it. So I don't know whether he can come back and do it or not.
Well, it's an American tradition to change your mind.
Andy?
Okay.
Well, I'd have to agree. I just cannot believe that if Edwards does not get the initial nomination and Kerry or whoever it is comes and offers it to him, I just cannot believe that he would say no to it. Because one thing, I'll have to agree with Dean. A politician is a politician is a politician, and when you've got the second highest office in the land, an opportunity to win it offered to you, I mean, how many of them are going to say no? I mean, it's not like he's got anything else to do with his time after this is over with if he does it. And I think you also have to look at it in two other ways. One, he is probably one of the sharpest people as far as an intellect that we have had in the U.S. Senate from North Carolina in a long time. He has the ability to pontificate on whatever issue he wants to. He can get it across to people. He has to look to it, but also he could help put North Carolina back in play.
He couldn't even win North Carolina.
Well, I disagree. He's won it before, Mike, and that's the thing.
Tell that to Locke
Boys,
Fairclough.
That's right. Locke Faircloth's sitting there raising hogs.
We're going to
down in
have to
eastern North
take a
Carolina.
break, and the only word I'm going to say to all of you is President Hillary, and which one of the seven
Yes,
dwarfs
sir.
will she pick?
Sounds good to
Let's
me.
take a break, and we'll be right back. Well, all I can say is it's a good thing they don't record the intro. We're back. We're live, and we're fixing to get into some questions about North Carolina here. Dean, you're on the elections board. You're the chairman, and I've got a question pertaining to the upcoming elections. Let's start off with one. North Carolina. We talked about Iowa, New Hampshire, all those states that don't really matter. Should North Carolina move its primaries so that we'll be more of the national player?
Well, not necessarily. If you want to move it up, but if you start a situation where everybody moves it up, then you get into something where it doesn't amount to anything. But we have some changes already this year. The legislature basically makes these changes and sets what it will be. And so if everything stays the way it is, filing deadline will be in February. And the filing period will be in February. And the primaries will be in May, as they normally have. But if anything changes, that'll be skewed from here on down, and we may end up with our primaries in September. Who knows?
Okay, Mike?
Well, I think at least for the presidential race, North Carolina ought to have an earlier primary, not later than the first week in March. If we ever want to be a player in really choosing our party's nominations, regardless of party, we're going to have an earlier primary. North Carolina has no part in choosing the player. So I think it's worth the money, and North Carolina wastes enough money on enough things, we can invest that money and at least have the presidential primary earlier.
Andy, as a former member of the General Assembly, what's your take?
I think we should have, especially the presidential, earlier, because this week I would have loved to have a presidential candidate out shuffling my driveway out. But seriously, I think it's to the point, it's like Mike said, we are now not even part of the equation anymore. The only thing we get is a little bit of blowover where we watch some commercials coming out of South Carolina. We have no say, and our vote is totally useless in May on the president. And I think it's time that we did something about that.
Here.
Speaking of primaries, Dean, will they take place as scheduled in May?
Well, I don't know. We'll have to find that out whenever the judges and whatever they do decide about the districts. And it's got to where, well, redistricting used to be something every 10 years. Now it's a 10-year process.
It's every 10 months now.
Yeah, we change it every time you turn around. So if they change it, then everything will be off. But let me tell you the latest thing I've heard from Raleigh with regard to the Democratic presidential primary, is that they are contemplating a caucus situation the same as Iowa. Now, I don't know when that will be, but I'll tell you one thing. The people in Iowa are used to going to the polls and hit 5 degrees below zero and a chill factor of 15 below zero, but the people of North Carolina are not used to that, and I don't know how that's going to work. If we wait till June, it might be fine.
How about
or March or whatever.
How about a Democratic caucus in one of those nice snowstorms we get in March here?
Well, it'll be a mess.
All right, Mike?
Well, I don't know if the primaries will take place. The conventional wisdom is that they won't take place in May, but there could be an early court decision, and you know, there are only a small part of the Republicans that are really supporting the lawsuit this time. It's not a widespread thing, so I'm not sure how much money they're willing to put into the fight. So I think it's still an open question, but I guess if I had to bet, I tend to bet we're not going to have a May primary at this point.
Andy, what are you hearing?
Well, I've worked the phone some this week, Dennis. As a former redistricting chair, I can tell you this is not an easy process. It's easier to have a wheelbarrow full of rabbits going down the road than it is to do this. I mean, because every time you get one fixed, something else jumps out somewhere else. I personally do not think that we're going to have May primary at this point. Now, I have some friends in Raleigh that says I'm wrong, that we were going to be run under the previous maps. I just don't see how you can when they've already been ruled unconstitutional. And even the judge that drew them said they were unconstitutional after he drew them. So I just don't see how we can do it and they can hold up. Then I think you're going to get into another court case. Now it's not about who is the best candidates, who's got the best lawyers out there these days.
So you're saying the Constitution actually has something to do with elections in North Carolina?
No, it has to do with lawyers' interpretations of it, and if
There you go.
they take it to court.
Well, let's move on. Got a question for you. 10th District. Can a Democrat win the U.S. Congress in the 10th District, Dean?
Yes, if we can find one that can raise the money.
Mike, what about it?
Democrats not got a snowball's chance in Hades of winning the 10th district. It's just that simple. You'd have to have a really bad Republican, and here's why.
You can find them.
NC Free has for years told us that when you get to 35% Republican and unaffiliated registration, that Republicans are not only competitive but will often win. The 10th district is nearly 60% Republican and unaffiliated. It's 42% Republican. Democrat is not going to win the 10th district.
All right, Andy?
I disagree with Mike.
Imagine that.
Not just any Democrat could win it. Not just anybody. You'd need somebody who is of a more moderate, pro-business type bent. You're going to have somebody that has access to either their own personal money or some great access to people who do have money to fund it. And three, you're going to have some help from the national ticket for the first time in a long time. If you've got a good candidate and you've got all these three things put together, yes, I think a Democrat could be viable, but it's not just anybody. It's got to be handpicked, and you're going to have a great deal of support.
And it would be unprecedented given the registration.
That's true, that you've got. But, as I said, anything can happen, Mike, if you've got the right candidate and are out buying money. Elections have turned on that more than one time, and you know that
I
yourself.
understand.
Well, we have the registration figures in Cleveland County belie what's happened at the elections.
But the other
That's
thing,
true.
too, that you've got to remember is if you've got most of it based in Catawba County, and you've got all these Catawba County candidates running, they're going to split and fractionalize that vote so to where somebody could come out of one like Cleveland County or somewhere like that where they could be the consensus candidate, you might could do something.
So are you announcing, Andy?
No, I did have one phone call, and I told them they need to go sober up. So.
Mike, you've already announced.
That's true that you can divide Catawba County, and when I was considering running as a Republican for the 10th district, that was part of my thought process. In the final analysis, I determined I don't want to go to Washington right now for a lot of reasons, but I don't think that carries over to the general election. They're going to unite behind whichever Republican comes out of the primary.
That's the same man called him.
Well, Dean, what about one last campaign?
Oh, jeez. Oh, gosh, I'll run for the woods, I'll tell you that.
Well, speaking of running for the woods, Mike, we'll start with you on this one because since you're not running, we'll concede this. Who do you see among the Republicans possibly winning this race?
Well, Mr. Ballinger has endorsed Sandy Lyons. Sandy seems to have lots of credentials. Mr. Moret's been out there early. The sheriff of Catawba County is well known in Catawba County. I think it's too early to make that call. I don't see a winner yet. I think we've got to learn more about the candidates. We don't even know anything about where they stand on lots of the issues, and let's face it, in a Republican primary, the social issues are important, and they will come out between now and the primary, and we may find out that one of them comes to the top over that, at least makes it competitive. So I don't have a clue which one will win.
Well, I know it's against your nature, but Dean and Andy, y'all want to pick the best Republican in this race?
We'll leave that to you.
Andy?
I think you're going to sit down between Moretz and the sheriff.
Well, I think David Huffman may be the dark horse in this one because David has a long-time background in Republican politics. He was a county commissioner. He's been a sheriff. I heard Sandy Lyons twice. Mike, I was impressed with Sandy.
First time.
The first time. The second time, I was not impressed with his efforts, and that brought some serious things. A prediction, I've heard a lot of people say they don't expect Mr. Lyons to actually file, that he may have a change of heart before that time. Let's see. I think he's a good man. He's got a lot of potential. He's just a rookie, and folks, unless you've never been a candidate, you don't know what you're going through when we do this. Got one last question here. Dean, you're from over in the Kings Mountain area. Why can't Kings Mountain keep a manager?
Well, the Maney fellow stayed there for a long, long time, and did a,
He was only manager about 3 years, though.
well, that's a long time for managers in many cases.
Not in Shelby.
But he, well, I think you changed a time or two that, during your reign. But anyway, they have now had the Mr. Ponder, and I really don't know. I don't live in Kings Mountain, so I hadn't been able to keep up with that except what I read in the Kings Mountain Herald and heard a little bit of gossip. So I think there must have been 2 or 3 city council people who just didn't agree with the way he did things, and that's this day and time that might be easy.
Andy?
The only thing I know is what I read in the news and watch on TV about Kings Mountain, but what I saw, former Councilman Gene White went to council meeting this past week, made some pretty strong accusations against the mayor and also members of city council about some malfeasance in office of some sort. And I'm not exactly sure what, something about using county, city employees for something, and he didn't really go into it, but I don't think we've heard the last of this.
Well, folks, Mike, you want to throw in 2 cents worth?
Well, Kings Mountain's got to make 2 changes, in my judgment, to get political stability if they want that. Number one, they got to get away from electing all the council members and mayor every 2 years. They've got to at least stagger and have 4-year terms so you don't have so much change at one time. It's tough on the manager. It's tough on the city. Number 2 is, if you're going to have a manager form of government, you got to let the manager be the manager. The manager's got to be running the city day to day, and the mayor and the council have got to let him have that freedom.
Well, Mike, with that, we've run out of time. And folks, all I can say is we haven't covered everything, so you better tune in next week right back here with some more Political Smackdown.
She gets her hair from her mom, her eyes from her dad, and her drugs from her home medicine cabinet. Fact: more people die from drug overdoses than from car crashes or gun violence. And over 50% of those deaths are from prescription drugs. Prescription drug abuse is preventable. 1. Secure and take regular inventory of our medications. 2. Dispose of unused or expired medications. 3. Share this message with others. Be aware, don't share, lock your meds.
Hi, I'm Shara Miller, the host of Artworks. Each month we bring to you wonderful, talented artists from here in Cleveland County and the region. We have artists, we have potters, we have painters, we have musicians, we have actors. We just have wonderful artists that come to you and tell you about all that they're doing, their creativity, what inspires them. Join me here on Artworks each month on C19. You can also watch us online at c19.tv.